Oh,
Ooh,
okay.
All it's I see.
I'm so ready.
I see why this
okay.
is 30 minutes now.
So I'm gonna start. This is my presentation on Splatoon 1 specifically, and most of the Splatfests in it, kind of, not really, because there's more than you would think that there are. This is not about any of the Splatoon games except for Splatoon 1. So, let's get started. Oh, fuck. Okay. So, the beginning of this presentation is pretty lame, actually, but we have to go over the history of the Splatfests. So, as far as I know, the first time that Nintendo ever announced Splatfests existing was on May 7th of 2015 in the Splatoon Direct that I believe was streamed live on the Nintendo of America YouTube channel. And in this video, in the last like 3 minutes, they basically kind of go over what Splatfests are and say that the first one for the Americas is going to take place from June 20th at 6 a.m. PT to June 21st, 6 a.m. Pacific time. Um, Also on the Nintendo UK Twitter, and for some reason the one for the Netherlands, they made a brief tweet about Splatfests. Um, I don't know why they tweeted it on the Netherlands one, but there was not a European Splatoon Direct. There was only an American one. So this is the first time that Europeans knew what their Splatfest was going to be. Um, and here I have a picture for what they are. And you can see that the Nintendo Netherlands account down here is posting about the Rock versus Pop Splatfest, whereas the Nintendo of America one is posting about the Cats versus Dogs Splatfest, which are two different Splatfests. And also, um, the the Nintendo Netherlands one says it's on June 27th, which is different than the date for the American one. So this is the first Splatfest for both the Netherlands and UK and America, and they're not the same theme and they're not on the same days. I only included the Netherlands one instead of the UK one because I like that it spelled Elk Splatfest in hashtag Splatoon Heeft in Thema in Wegan von Start op 2706 met Thama Rock versus Pop Keys Gikant. And I thought that was funny. So now we can go over that Splatfest regions are actually different, which means that they specify that players all across the Americas are going to be divided into two teams. And that's because Splatfests were actually region exclusive, being divided generally into what we can easily interpret as being NTSU, NTSCJ, and PAL regions. And the reason I say that, and I say we, is because we mod Mario Kart Wii, so we generally know what that means. Whereas I feel like stupid people wouldn't know what that means. But we're not dumb, so I'm just going to use those because we'll understand it. So as far as I know, the North American Splatfests are actually true for both North and South America. Like, they're called NA, but it really is just the Americas. So it really is North and South America Splatfests. Then the Japanese Splatfests only took place in Japan and literally nowhere else. And the European Splatfests are actually for all of Europe as well as Oceania. So we got like Australia and New Zealand and whatever else included with the European Splatfests. And so despite this, because Splatfests only having lasted about 1 year in Splatoon, the total amount of Splatfests that there actually happened to be that were unique are actually multiplied by 3. Because say there was only 16 Splatfests in North America, you would think there was only 16 Splatfests. You actually take the 16 and multiply it by 3, because generally every country had its own unique Splatfest. So there were actually double as many Splatfests in America that literally most Americans could not access because they did not have the copies and or the consoles to play the other regions. Real quick, I want to go over what the Squid Research Lab was, because I got a lot of information that came from both Wikipedia, which is the Splatoon wiki, and also the Squid Research Lab, which I'll detail here, is Wikipedia has a direct archive of the Squid Research Lab, which was a official Tumblr blog that Nintendo actually ran through the life of both Splatoon 1 and Splatoon 2, where they played like one character, which is a guy, or possibly different characters, but mostly it's probably supposed to be the same guy as there was in the Splatoon Direct, because the Splatoon 1 and 2 Direct are actually also from the Squid Research Lab, and it's a guy voice. The Splatoon 3 Direct is also the Squid Research Lab, but it is a different voice, which is kind of weird. But they were scientists basically that researched the Inklings and the Octolings themselves, and they generally use this as a creative way to release new information about the game. I'm only telling them now because I'm actually going to use them later and bring them up later. So they'll be important for later as I'll refer to them a couple different times. So, continuing to go over the history of Splatfests, on June 13th, the Squid Research Lab made a Tumblr post linking to a YouTube video on Nintendo America's channel titled Splatfest Incoming, um, where they comment on it on Tumblr posts saying, "We've received some new video, blah, blah, blah." Nobody actually really gives a shit. And there's a song sung by the legendary Squid Sisters, followed by a lot of tags because it was on Tumblr. I agree that the Squid Sisters are legendary, so that was a good thing for them to put in that post. But regardless, I suppose the video was meant to hype people up for the Splatfest because there's not really anything interesting in the video. It's kind of literally just like a hype video. Like there's no interesting information in the video, so we're not gonna watch it. Now the first Splatfest that actually happened was the Rice versus Bread Splatfest, which started on June 13th, 2015 at 7 a.m. UTC, and it ended 24 hours later. Because when Splatoon 1 happened, Splatfests literally only lasted 24 hours exactly. Now you'll notice this happened about one entire week before the American one is supposed to happen, and 2 weeks before the European and Oceania one is supposed to happen. This Splatfest did not work. Because of this, uh, we'll go over, I guess, this first. But oh well, yeah, here it is. I did this presentation correctly. Yeah, so because of this, they actually posted on June 19th that they are going to delay the North American Splatfest, that they do not know when they're gonna have it. But the issue is basically that there was a matchmaking issue that made players have to wait a really long time to actually get in matches with other players. And so because of this, um, they basically delayed Splatfests in both North America and Europe. And also on this post, they linked this image, which I think is where Splat Tim came from, which was like a really stupid fucking meme from 2015. But I don't know if they didn't delay the Splatfest, if this image would have ever been posted. So this meme literally only exists because the Rice versus Bread Splatfest like fucking exploded, which is kind of interesting. So eventually on June 25th, the Squid Research Lab would announce that the Cats vs. Dogs Splatfest is back on. And like literally, that is what they said verbatim. Like that is literally exactly what it says, is the Cats vs. Dogs Splatfest is back on. They say it's gonna be on July 4th, which is kind of weird because it's the 4th of July. I also want to point out over here that they said hashtag patriotic punnery. Good for them. Also, I want to point out just in March that they posted some tag post on this, and for some reason they tagged it with "He was a skater squid, she said see you later squid," because Nintendo fucking hated everybody back then. But I think it's pretty funny, so I just wanted to share how weird I thought this was. Okay, so anyways, all of this stuff so far has been really fucking boring. Like, actually, who the fuck gives a shit about any of this? So we're actually gonna go and look at the first Splatfests and see who won. So we already know that the first Splatfests were Rice versus Bread, Cats versus Dogs, and Rock versus Pop, like I talked about earlier. Or at least you should know because I fucking went over it already. So if you're not paying attention, I'm actually gonna be kind of offended. But we don't know who won them, and there's other fun details that are related to this sort of stuff if you like statistics. So instead, we're actually gonna go over Splatfest stages because generally the way the stage rotation worked in Splatoon 1 was that you got to choose between two stages per mode per rotation. And when I say you get to choose, I mean the game got to choose. And for some reason, each rotation was 4 hours in Splatoon 1, which they in the later games they would change to only being 2 hours. So essentially, regular battle, which was just turf war, and ranked battle, which was everything else like Rainmaker and fucking tower control and splat zones and whatever, would choose between two stages, each for 4 hours, until a new set of two stages were chosen. So in total, there were 4 unique stages that could be played every 4 hours, unless you didn't have ranked battle unlocked, because you need to get to ranked battle to unlock it. So basically, what I mean, to explain, even though nobody cares, is that if you were going to play Turf War, you could play, from example, down here I have Urchin Underpass and Walleye Warehouse. So those would be the two stages available for Turf War. Ranked Battle would have two other stages available for that mode specifically, which means that depending if you're going to play regular battle or ranked battle, there were 4 total stages for each set of rotations for 4 hours. For Splatfest, they choose between 3 stages. But also ranked battle was disabled during Splatfest, so you actually lose a stage. But like I say here, I don't know anyone that was like, oh wow, I'm so fucking bored of playing Walleye Warehouse. Let me hop on Tower Control so I can play Moray Towers. Because I don't know why you would change what mode you're playing specifically just because of the map. Unless maybe it was actually, I guess, a shit fucking map. Then maybe, but if it was me, I would have just stopped playing the game. So here during Splatfest, for example, we get Urchin Underpass, Walleye Warehouse, and Salisbury Rig, where normally there'd only be 2 stages, but for Splatfest we get 3. So for the first Splatfest in every region, there's 3 stages available were Urchin Underpass, Walleye Warehouse, and Kelp Dome. Except that for some fucking reason, in Europe and Oceania, instead of Kelp Dome, they had Port Mackerel, which was actually an older stage at the time, because it was actually added to the game 9 days before Kelp Dome was added. So run this back, the Rice versus Bread in Japan and the Cats versus Dogs in North Americas have Walleye Warehouse, Urchin Underpass, and Kelp Dome. But then for some fucking reason, the Rock versus Pop one in Oceania has Port Mackerel. Like, I literally have no fucking idea why. Like, the Europeans just thought they were special or something. So, anyways, no one actually really fucking cares. So we're just gonna move on to other information. So the actual winners was that Rice beat Bread. So if you like Rice over Bread, great for you. Dogs beat Cats in North America, and Rock beat Pop in Europe, because we all know that Europeans do not like pop music. So now, just some more information. If you're curious, the closest margin between what teams were gonna win was that Cats versus Dogs won, where Dogs won only by beating the Cats 53% to 47%, which is going to sound weird to explain it that way, but basically the way that Splatfests determine who wins is on a percentage scale, which I'll kind of go more into later, but basically the winning team is only decided based on a 100% scale. So whichever team is closer to 100% is basically the team that wins. So, anyways, we can talk about actually interesting things now. So now we're gonna talk about the American Splatfests that are neat. This is going in chronological order for each region. So we're gonna start with America, and the first one that I think is really rather interesting is the fourth Splatfest, which is Autobots versus Decepticons. Which I say that I actually have no idea why Nintendo did this, but I did do actual research and I looked on the Transformers wiki, which claims that there was a sponsorship deal between Nintendo and Hasbro, which is not on the Splatoon wiki, so I don't know if it's true or not, but I'm gonna assume that the Transformers people know more about Hasbro in the collaborations that they did than the people that fucking care about Splatoon. So we're just gonna take it at face value that there was a sponsorship between Nintendo and Hasbro, and that's why they did a Transformers Robots in Disguise Splatfest between the Autobots and Decepticons. Also, I thought it was interesting that a few days before the Splatfest officially started, the colors in the normal battles in Turf War and I assume ranked battles were locked to the red and purple of this Splatfest, which are not colors that are normally available. I did not include a slide describing this, but just so you know, the way that Splatoon works is that there are only certain color combinations that can be chosen from. So say there's like turquoise and like an off orange, or there's dark blue and dark orange, or like purple and green, and they're set up in like a queue sort of thing, like a list, and it's only going to choose, say, values from 1 to 20, and say value 18, for example, is going to be like pink versus green. So it doesn't choose both colors at random. It chooses from like a list of like 10 or so different predetermined color combinations, and the red and purple of this Splatfest was not one of those. So I have no idea how they fucked this up, but that was the only fucking colors the game was choosing from for a couple days. So that's pretty interesting. The next one that's kind of interesting is number 6 in America, which is Cars versus Planes. The reason this one is notable is because when they updated Splatoon to version 2.0.0, they changed how the Splatfest results are calculated by multiplying how much the battles count over popularity by 4 instead of 2. And what that means is that when they go and they calculate the battles, they take the percentage of the popularity, so say 53% over 47%, and then they take how many percentage of battles the teams won, and they multiply that number by 2. And then they take those two numbers and they like combine them into like a score, which is weird to do it that way, but that's what they did. And then, and by the way, the percentages, like they just took those numbers and then multiplied those and then got the score off of that. So what they would do is say if it was 53% and 47%, they just multiply the number 47 by 2 and add it to 53 and then take the score from that, which is a really weird way of scoring things, but that's how they did it. So I guess they decided that multiplying it by 2 was not fucking enough. So they decided to multiply it by 4. And this is the first Splatfest where that change actually affected the winning team, which ended up being Cars. Um, if they did not change that, Planes would have actually won the Splatfest. So that's the first Splatfest in which them actually deciding to multiply the amount of battles by 4 instead of 2 actually changed to 1. And between the time that they made that change and this Splatfest, 6 Splatfests had actually occurred across all 3 regions, like 2 for each basically. So that's kind of interesting that they made this change and then 6 whole fucking Splatfests went by where the change actually didn't fucking matter at all. So now this one is actually an American and European Splatfest, but not for Japanese people because Japanese do not like SpongeBob SquarePants. So number 13 is SpongeBob versus Patrick. This Splatfest actually did occur simultaneously in both the North Americas and in Europe and Oceania. And this one, I am 99% certain, actually did pair the players between both regions. So what I mean is that if you played in America and say I played with JL who's typing right now, we could actually get paired up and play together. Whereas normally the Splatfests are separated, so you can't do that. So this one is actually pretty cool. That it paired the North American and European and Oceania players together. And as far as I'm aware, this is the only time that this happened exclusively for North America and Europe and Oceania. So now this one occurred actually everywhere, and this one is number 14, which is Fancy Party versus Costume Party. And this is the first Splatfest that actually took place globally across all 3 regions. So North America, Europe and Oceania, and Japan. This was also a tie-in, I'm gonna say, for lack of a better term, with Mitomo, which if you don't know, because it's stupid, which was Nintendo's first mobile game. And I put game kind of in quotes because it wasn't really a game. It was kind of like a lamer version of Tomodachi Life, but like if you could talk to your friends on Wi-Fi and also like text them, it was kind of dumb, but like in a way that made it really funny. And then they shut it down before it even lasted for a year. So this was actually the first Splatfest, or not the first one, because SpongeBob and Patrick also did this, but I didn't mention it because I didn't have enough space to write it. But this one and SpongeBob and Patrick actually lasted for 30 hours instead of 24 hours for whatever reason. So that's pretty interesting. Now we're done with American people. We're going to move on to European people. So the European Splatfest that I think is interesting, the first one is number 2, which is eating versus sleeping. I put this one on here because I feel like eating and sleeping are not mutually exclusive. Like, I don't understand why you're choosing eating versus sleeping. Okay, Fancy Party versus Costume Party, maybe kind of related. SpongeBob versus Patrick, I kind of get it. Cars versus Planes. I didn't detail it, but it's actually, they were asking, which way would you prefer to travel? Via car, via plane. Okay, I kind of get it. Autobots versus Decepticons. Okay, they literally fight each other. I get it. Why are we choosing between eating and sleeping? You can have both. I don't. And again, like I say, why was they did put this one in America? This one didn't happen in America. Doesn't it make more sense to ask this as an American question? I feel like I feel like this is more of an American thing because we're supposed to be fat, right? And maybe we love sleeping so much. Aren't European people supposed to be healthy and fit and riding bikes around or something? I'm not completely understanding. So then the next one is North Pole versus the South Pole. I just think this one is weird. Because does anyone even really have any stakes in this? Like, who's gonna be like, oh, fuck the South Pole, bro. I'm so North Pole pilled. Now, what I decided is that this was Europe and Oceania, and as we all know, Australia is supposedly on the other side of the planet. So I thought maybe it was supposed to be a Europe versus Oceania Splatfest, and they just didn't want to say that. So I'm assuming that that's why they did this for. Is that they chose the North Pole is that they did the North Pole versus South Pole to secretly do Europe versus Oceania or something because I have no fucking idea who the fuck cares about this. Number 6 is actually cats versus dogs, which if you remember is the first one in North America. So in case you thought that Europeans and Australians and the folks in New Zealand and whoever else fucking hated cats and dogs, they apparently do not. This is the only time in Splatoon 1 that a Splatfest that another region had earlier was actually reused for a different region later in time. Interestingly, cats won instead of dogs. So Europeans and people in New Zealand and also Australians like cats more than dogs, whereas Americans like dogs more than cats. So if you ever need to use that, you can. So maybe if you're trying to hit on a baddie, you can talk to her about cats if you know she's from New Zealand because she doesn't care about dogs. So moving on, that's all the European stuff that's interesting, really. So we're going to move on to the Japanese Splatfests, which number 2, which is Red Kitsune Udon versus Green Tanuki Soba. A lot of the Japanese Splatfests are actually things that really only make sense to someone who knows Japanese culture really well. You'll see more because we're gonna talk about basically every single Japanese Splatfest. The only other interesting thing about this Splatfest is that it was repeated for the ninth Splatfest, where green Tanuki Soba beat red Kitsune Udon. Um, which I think I wrote down because in this Splatfest, red Kitsune Udon beat green Tanuki Soba, so they both won at different points in time. So next, we're gonna talk about number 5, which is Airhead versus Wisecracker. I'm gonna say this wrong because I didn't actually look into it because I made this presentation in like 2 days and I worked on it almost 24/7. So I didn't not look into pronounce how to pronounce all of the Japanese stuff. So at least one person in this voice call probably knows how to say Japanese things and they're gonna yell at me about this. So this Splatfest is based off of the Manzai style of comedy, which is a traditional style of comedy in Japanese culture that is similar to the double act comedy or comedy duos in other regions. Which is kind of like if you want to think about like the Three Stooges, except if they were like the Two Stooges. So the airhead is the bokeh or like the funny man, and then the wisecracker is the tsukomi, which is the straight man. So essentially, the Splatfest is asking if you are more like the Patrick or the Squidward of there being a comedy duo, where Patrick is the airhead and Squidward is the wisecracker. But this is just like they asked it in a way that is like basically only makes sense in like Japan culture, Japanese culture, unless you're like actually gonna you cannot fucking ask this in America. No one's gonna go what the fuck this means. So or Europe, I suppose. Um so I thought that one was interesting. There's another one that I didn't include on here that was called "Are you more like a grasshopper or an ant?" And that one's basically saying that like I guess a grasshopper procrastinates on work, where like an ant works diligently through the work or something like that. And you can't ask that one anywhere else either because we don't fucking use ants and grasshoppers to compare people. So next we have number 6, which is Squid versus Octopus, and that is not Ikamesame on the left, if anyone's wondering. So this Splatfest is not actually about the actual sea creatures, the squid or octopus. It's actually specifically about the types of sushis. So it's asking, do you like squid sushi or octopus sushi? Which is why there's pictures of food in the picture that they used. This Splatfest was also in cooperation with the Kora Sushi Restaurant, which is one of those conveyor belt sushi restaurant chains. And I actually found out that as of 2023, there's 540 in Japan, but there's supposed to be about 70 in the United States. So maybe we have to go to one of these and ask them about Splatoon at some point or something. Maybe they'll know. I don't know. Number 7 was Love versus Money, which all I have to say is just that I think this is crazy that Nintendo put this in the game. They were like, "Do you care more about love, or do you not? Do you like ISC pill fuck love, and you would choose money?" Like I just that's insane because there was like 9 years olds playing this game. I get maybe in Japan that's normal. I don't know. So number 10 is Perfect Body versus Perfect Mind, and the reason that I include this one is because it's only notable because it's the only one that was exclusive to Japan that they reasonably could have put in the United States and or Europe. I guess you could put Love versus Money, but again, like I said, I feel like it's kind of crazy, so I wouldn't. But this is one of the only ones that they had that really would have made sense to have in North America or Europe because literally the rest of them you cannot do. They don't make sense if you do not know the Japanese culture. Um, so then we're gonna talk about the Pokemon Splatfests, which was number 11 everywhere. Pokemon Red versus Pokemon Blue. I did not write it down here, but just so we know, they held these for the 20th anniversary of Pokemon. This year is the 30th anniversary of Pokemon, so we are fucking chopped. This Splatfest actually occurred in both North America, Europe, and Oceania. But unlike the SpongeBob vs. Patrick Splatfest, this one was separated into two distinct groups of players. This happened before SpongeBob vs. Patrick, which means that even though the Splatfest was the exact same fucking thing, it was Pokemon Red versus Pokemon Blue in both North America and Europe. They did not play together. They were two distinct Splatfests. They were not the same. The same theme, but not the same statistics. Like, hypothetically, Pokemon Red could have won in America, and Pokemon Blue could have run in Europe and Oceania. Like, they were not the same Splatfest. The same theme, not the same competition. So while both North America and Europe got to play Black Belly Skate Park and Camp Sugarfish, in North America the third stage was Anchovy Games, while in Europe and Oceania it was Hammerhead Bridge. Um, Now despite them being different Splatfests, Pokemon Blue won both of the Splatfests, although Pokemon Blue won by a higher percentage in the Americas than it did in Europe. So I guess Americans just like Pokemon Blue better than Europeans do. They are more passionate about it. I don't really know. Um, In Japan, they also had the same Splatfest, but Pokemon Blue did not come out in Japan. Instead, they had Pokemon Green. So they had Pokemon Red versus Pokemon Green. Um, their stages were Urchin Underpass, Camp Sugarfish, and Museum D'Alfonsino, which means that the only stage that was shared between all three regions was actually Camp Sugarfish because, as I said here, North America and Europe had Blackbelly Skate Park, whereas instead Japan had Urchin Underpass, and then the third stage was different for all regions. Um, Pokemon Green also won the Splatfest, which means that despite the fact that there were three separate Splatfests, three separate competitions, Pokemon Red did not win a single fucking one. So if you think people actually like Charizard, and you think Charizard is overrated, remember that he is not, because he did not win any of these goddamn motherfucking Splatfests. But Blastoise won 2, and Venusaur won 1. So fuck Charizard. We hate Charizard in this house. Pokemon Green also beat Pokemon Red by 64% to 36%, which is the highest win percentage that occurred in any of Splatoon 1 Splatfests. Now we're just going to talk about other Splatfest oddities. This one is Pirates vs. Ninjas and Barbarians vs. Ninja, or Barbarian vs. Ninja. The 7th Splatfest in North America was Pirates vs. Ninjas, which isn't very notable on its own, really. But what is notable about it is that the 10th Splatfest in Europe and Oceania was Barbarian vs. Ninja, which seems very similar. And also, it's just one ninja, not ninjas. In America, it's ninjas, whereas in Europe, they had ninja. This is the only time that Splatfest theme between two regions was like kind of somewhat the same. And in North America, Pirates won, and in Europe and Oceania, Barbarians won, or Barbarian. Sorry, the one fucking Barbarian won. And it's important to note that in the Americas, they were asking which of the two that you preferred. Like, do you like Pirates better or Ninjas better? Whereas in Europe and Oceania, I believe they were asking which of your play style in Splatoon matched better. So, like, do you play more like a Barbarian, or do you play the game more like a Ninja? Um, I guess. Now I do want to note that the ninjas did slightly better than the one singular ninja that was in Europe, but they both lost anyway, so nobody cares. Um, there were a couple of Splatfests that almost tied, but they didn't. So no Splatfest tied at all. I actually have no idea what they would have done if a Splatfest tied, because there doesn't seem to be anything in the game for if a team did tie. So the only thing that I can possibly assume is that Nintendo would have rigged it, or maybe they did rig it. I don't know. Maybe teams did tie and Nintendo just changed the results. That's very possible, because there's nothing in the game. There is no dialogue for if teams tied in the game as far as we know. I don't think there's any functions in the game for if teams tied, so I don't think Nintendo intended on teams tying. And it never happened. So I don't know. Despite this, three Splatfests got somewhat close to time. In the European Get Fit versus Get Rich Splatfest and the Japanese Red Kitsune Udon versus Green Tanuki Soba, 2015 Splatfest, which was the first one, as opposed to the second one, as I said, because they did it twice. In Perfect Body versus Perfect Mind Splatfests, they used the original 2 times battle multiplier, which they would have ended in a tie if they used the original 2 times battle multiplier. But by the time that all of these occurred, they actually had updated the battle multiplier even higher from 4 times to 6 times. And I also mention that because I think it's funny how many times they misjudged how much they should multiply the worth of battles over the popularity of a team in the game. Um, I just think that's funny. But yeah, that's basically all I have to say about this. No Splatfest teams ever tied, but they almost did. And maybe teams did tie, but Nintendo rigged it because, like I said, I don't think there was anything in the game for if teams did. So this is Snowmans versus Sandcastles, which some of you guys might know about. Snowman versus Sandcastles was the only Splatfest that was announced in-game before they could actually post an announcement for it on social media. For some reason, I don't know why. Interestingly, this Splatfest only occurred in the Americas, which to me makes the incident slightly more interesting that it ended up being this way. And also, this is the Splatfest where Callie says that Team Snowbait is so fleek that she literally can't even for some reason. I don't know why she says that, but she does. So now this is the second half of the presentation. This is halfway through the presentation, pretty much. The rest of the presentation is entirely about the Callie versus Marie Splatfest because there is genuinely so much fucking information about the Splatfest that they treated it like it was gonna be the end of Nintendo. So beginning with the Callie versus Marie Splatfest, there is a lot to say about it because it was the final official Splatfest that Nintendo held for Splatoon 1, and for that reason there are a lot of unique aspects about it and a lot of trivia to talk about. It is the only and the first Splatfest that lasted for a full 48 hours instead of 24 hours, or sometimes 30, as we discussed earlier, because a few only lasted for 30. And after the first 24 hours, the battle music changed from the typical Splatfest battle song, Ink Me Up, which isn't very notable, I mean, it's a good song, but that's about it. To a slightly modified version of Calamari Incantation, which is the final boss theme that is actually sung by the Squid Sisters in Splatoon 1. In this game, Calamari Incantation has a few lore implications, but in the later games, there's a lot more lore implications for Calamari Incantations. That it is basically a divine melody that the world seems to balance on to some extent in the world. Like Calamari Incantation is like literally like the meaning of life or something in the games. Um, this Splatfest had a stage vote, which is very interesting. On the left, you can see the stage ballot that was sent to people, and on the right, you can see the results for what people ended up voting for. So, due to this being the final Splatfest, a vote took place prior to the event where voters could select what stages they actually wanted to play in the Splatfest. The way that they conducted the vote was that they sent the poll on the left to the emails of Splatoon players that had a Nintendo Network ID, assigned to their email and everything. Results from the pool from each region were combined for the final stage collection, which ended up being Kelp Dome, Moray Towers, and Walleye Warehouse. I'd like to note that Moray Towers was honestly a pretty infamous stage at the time, and to some extent still is, although I believe it was also somewhat beloved. So I think that people could have chosen it for that reason. Like, it's kind of like if, like, all of Mario Kart Wii was gonna die and we had to pick what stages we wanna play last, and people chose Mushroom Peaks. Except if Mushroom Peaks wasn't as annoying, because Moritowa still had some good aspects about it. Walleye Warehouse was also the only stage that was chosen that was in the game since launch. Like, that was a stage that was in the game the whole time. Also, on the left, where I have the ballot, you can see, over here, you only got to choose one stage. Everybody only got to pick from one stage. Also over here, most people ended up choosing the same stages, as you'll see. Like, Walleye Warehouse was in everything, Moray Towers was in everything. I think Kelp Dome was voted in every region, etc. Um, this is the origins of the Splatfest. So, on an IGN article with the series producer of Splatoon, which is Nogami, they claimed that the team didn't actually realize how popular the Squid Sisters were going to be as characters when the game launched. And the popularity of them and how they grew was actually what pushed Nintendo to make the final Splatfest to be Callie versus Marie. And then Nintendo did not actually plan on that being the final Splatfest of the game. So all of the information I'm talking about was actually decided between the time that the game launched and about a year later, which is makes it a lot more interesting to me that they did all of this within a year and did not plan it from the start. So there were plenty of real world promotions for this Splatfest. Um, and well, I'm gonna go over some of them. So Inkipedia claims that one of them were the Callie and Marie amiibo figurines being released on July 7th, 2016, which was about 2 weeks before the Splatfest took place. I guess this is true, but I don't really count this as much because they were probably going to release Callie and Marie amiibos regardless. I get they released it at the time because it did tie in, but it's not as interesting as some of the other stuff that I do think they made specifically because of the Splatfest. So as I say, there were several other real world events and also items that you could buy as well. In Japan, most of this stuff was in Japan, by the way, because they hate Americans and Europeans and people in Oceania. You could buy real world versions of the Splatfest tees for the Squid Sisters, which are these over here. As well as the default Splatfest tee, which was a default kind of unused texture that was used in the game, and then also the Squid Vader cap for some reason, which is this thing down here. I don't know why you could buy it, but that cap goes hard, and I wish I had it, and I'm kind of sad. There was also video game vendors across Japan also had special sections where fans were able to write comments supporting each Squid Sister that they chose. And the same stores also offered postcards that mimicked the special cover art that Nintendo released for the Callie and Marie for the Splatfest, which was also made in commemoration for the Splatfest, like I say. So you can see over here some of the game stuff. I have more pictures of it later. So this is the postcards and like the special box art that they made for the game. These are some of the post board things that people posted in the stores. So like these are real drawings that like people did and put in video game stores for the Splatfest, which I find very interesting. There was also a Squid Sisters pop-up cafe for this. Yes, they made a fucking pop-up cafe for this stupid ass Splatfest. I don't know why they went so hard on the advertising. So at the Nico Nico headquarters, I don't even want to try saying that because I know I'm gonna fuck it up. A Squid Sisters themed pop-up cafe was set up that was open from the 9th of July until the 28th of July, which is honestly a surprisingly long amount of time. Um, Wikipedia claims that the fans who dined in at the cafe received a set of Callie or Marie themes. I don't know what that is supposed to be honest. Um, Coasters, um, which is this stuff here, down here, you can see. Beautiful. And were asked whose team they were on for the Splatfest, which I suppose they would have been asked first because, then they get the coasters and all that stuff. Um, there's also merchandise from the previous live performances of the Squid Sisters, which were also sold in the cafe. And the live performances, which I haven't really mentioned because it's not relevant to Splatfests, but they were basically like how they have vocal aid concerts, but they were for the Squid Sisters. And they had a couple in Japan. I think there might have been two, and there was one in Paris. And they didn't do any in America because, as I said, they hate Americans. Also, the Nico Nico Doga mascot is in the background here, and I love him. And I want the Nico Nico mascot to be in my house in forever. And I love the Nico Nico mascot. So this is some more pictures just of the Squid Sisters pop-up cafe. This was a big deal. There was a lot for this. Like, oh my fucking god, wait, there's a Nico Nico. Fuck me, bro. I can't have the Nico Nico Doga pasta. I'm actually pissed off now. I want the Nico Nico Doga pasta. Fuck my life, bro. I don't even care about the Squid Sisters anymore. I just want the Nico Nico pasta. Anyways, here's some more pictures of it. This is some of the stuff that they would give you, like I was saying earlier. This is more blah 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 blah. There's a shirt that you can get, other things. It was a lot of stuff. It's really interesting. More pictures. This is like this Marie part of it. They had like her song playing on the wall. People drew a whole bunch of shit. I don't know why someone drew Callie over there. Literally, I mean, this was a big deal. Okay, so here's in-game events that they had, but outside of Splatoon. So they had a couple of events that happened in other video games too, and I'll start with Super Mario Maker, which David will love because he sucks Mario's dick. So, anyways, there was an event course called Squid Sisters versus the Bloopers, which allowed players to unlock the mystery mushroom costumes of Callie and Marie, depending on which path they took, because there were two paths, and depending on which path you took, you would unlock either Callie or Marie, which you could also unlock by scanning their amiibos, or you could play this. The Art Academy game had a Splatfest Memories event where players could share Splatfest themed artwork on Miiverse, which I believe Nintendo did kind of share more publicly on their social medias, but I didn't include that because I didn't have enough room and I didn't want to add more slides just for that. And then finally, on Miitomo, as I discussed earlier, there were Splatoon-themed items that returned, as well as shirts based on the special Splatfest tees being released in the game, in real life, and in that picture, as you can see. All players also received a free pin of Marie after the Splatfest finished, and Callie's pin went on sale. I didn't know where else to put this. This is just some promotional art that I really like. There is promotional art for actually almost every single Splatfest. They did it, continued it in Splatoon 2, and they continued it in the Splatoon 3, but it's not as interesting as Splatoon 3. The Splatoon 1 and 2 Splatfest promotional art is way cooler. But the art for Callie versus Marie is especially notable to me for containing references to past Splatfests, especially the ones that were collaborations with other franchises and brands. As you can see, there's Optimus Prime, Pokemon. For some reason, the French are there. There's Miitomo down here. We got Patrick Star. We got like the lemonade tea thing, which I don't think I detailed about because it's not really worth it. These are mostly Japanese ones here. This is like a choco cone sort of thing that they had. So now let's talk about Callie versus Marie in Splatoon 2. I know I said I wasn't going to talk about Splatoon 2 or 3, but I actually am. So Splatoon 2 had already actually started development by the time that the Callie vs. Marie Splatfest was taking place, and the team had decided to factor the results of Callie vs. Marie in the Splatoon 2 story, and originally they considered announcing the Splatfest with the phrase, "Your choice will change the next Splatoon," but they ultimately decided against doing that because Splatoon 2 hadn't been announced at the time the Splatfest was happening, and wouldn't be officially announced for about another 5 months until January of 2017 at the Nintendo Switch like presentation, whatever the fuck it was. So what they ended up doing was after Splatoon 2 released, they released the Squid Sisters story, which was a web serial published weekly sometime shortly after the Splatoon 2 released that detailed the events that happened to the Squid Sisters between the final Splatfest of Splatoon 1 and when the events of Splatoon 2 story mode takes place in the timeline, which is most likely about 1 year because Splatoon generally seems to take place at about the same rate of time of our year. So however many years goes between, say, Splatoon 2 and Splatoon 3 is, in our time, which was about 5 years, is how much time has passed in their world as well. So the final Splatfest basically causes Callie and Marie's popularity to skyrocket to new heights, becoming most likely, as I interpret, the most famous celebrities in the entirety of the Inkling world, which is a fact that does not change. Callie and Marie, for the rest of the Splatoon series, as far as we know, are basically the most popular celebrities ever. Like, of course, new celebrities come in and kind of take their place, but they are never forgotten. Like, they are always basically like mega popular. Like, they will be known until they die. Um, because of this, they basically start focusing on their solo careers, which causes them to drift apart. And long story short, this causes Callie to feel empathetic for the Octarians, which are the bad guys, where DJ Octavio eventually brainwashes her to work for them, and you have to save her in Splatoon 2 story mode. So the results of this Splatfest turn out that on July 24th, 2016, it was revealed that Marie had won the Splatfest by only 51%, which, as you remember, means I actually say it down here that the final scores were that Callie had 340 out of 700, which was a possible score, and Marie with 360 out of 700. So very close. Marie also won her popularity by 54%, where Callie only had 46%, which is awesome. And the percentage of battle wins were about the same as the Splatfest overall at 51% to 49%. So it was a really close battle. It's really possible that Marie only won because she was more popular. Um, in the Splatfest results dialogue, Marie thanks Callie for being her best friend, where Callie tells her that she earned it and proclaims Squid Sisters forever. Afterwards, Callie and Marie woefully realize that the Splatfests are over for the time being, and that they are going to miss hosting them. And then, as I explained prior, then this happens between that and Splatoon 2 starting. Then in the Splatoon 3 Grand Festival, which was a Splatfest that was held for Splatoon 3's second anniversary, as well as being more or less the last large content update for that game, Callie and Marie were both a part of Team Past, which, against all odds, being viewed as a team that was unlikely to win, was able to rise against teams present and future to win the Splatfest. This moment, aside from being a full circle for veterans of the community, as I was also on Team Past because of Splatoon 1 and the Squid Sisters, is also a full circle for Callie and Marie's friendship and relationship as a family, because they're cousins, not sisters, actually, by the way, fun fact. They went from being teenagers, about 16 or 17 in Splatoon 1, to young adults, about 24, 25, by the time that this Splatfest had concluded. As you can see, the dialogue is that Callie says that they did it together. Then they celebrate. Um, Splatoon recently turned 11 years old 2 days ago on May 28th, and Splatoon 1 is one of my favorite games of all time, and I would give my entire world for it. It is most likely where most of my fondest memories of playing video games of all time originated from. And this is more or less the end of the presentation, but just to wrap it up with the Splatfests, there's a short official video that Nintendo posted about 10 years ago that I'd like to watch, and then that's pretty much the end. Oh, where's my audio? I can't even hear my own audio. Oh, it's because everyone muted. Okay, there's audio. Never mind.
Bluetooth connected.
Okay, I have to restart the video. My speaker turns off when nobody says anything. Oh fuck! Okay, never mind. Rerun! Aw. And thank you for watching my presentation. That's all.
Hello. You.
That was a
Bye,
really good
Theo.
presentation.
I love
Bye,
it.
Joe. Do I spin the
Hi,
wheel?
Joe.
Oh my god, Tarta
Bye,
thinks this
Theo.
T-Rex.
Okay. Let me
I
share
would
my
like to
screen.
do we should do another presentation night because that was actually only like 25% of my Splatoon 1 knowledge, so I have more to share.
Oh my goodness.